Hello, everybody. Good evening, listeners of Ukrainian Independent Radio. And like every other Thursday, we have real estate podcast here on Ukrainian Independent Radio. And I'm your host, Oleg. I am a real estate agent here with Century 21, and we're talking on different topics here on the radio. Today, we're going to be talking about real estate investing with my guest Lou Parrino. And okay, I see you now, Lou. I wasn't seeing you before. So thanks, Lou, for tuning in, for joining me today. We're going to be talking a little bit about real estate investing, building your wealth, investing into financial freedom. So give us a little bit of a background about yourself, Lou. How did you get started in real estate investing and all that?
Yeah, so I had this crazy idea back in college that I wanted to own real estate. And, I was 18, 19 years old, and I just liked the concept of tenants paying you every month to fund your lifestyle. So I started getting more serious about it, kind of investigating it. Didn't really know how or where or when I would start. But I knew that's kind of what I wanted to do. I was starting to apply for jobs. I graduated college almost a year early and was kind of looking to decide where I wanted to go with things. And then I met our managing broker, Stino Melito, who my dad's known for 30, 40 plus years. And obviously Stino is kind of the grandmaster at real estate investing, has been doing it for a long time. So I sat down with him. My dad introduced us, and he made it seem very simple. He was around my age when he started, and he suggested that I get my real estate license and just start learning everything that I could about the business. And that's what I did. I was 21 years old.
21? Okay.
21. Yep. So I was technically a junior in college. I graduated, like I said, almost a year earlier. So I was finishing up, the last classes and finals that I had while getting my real estate license, and just went for it. Had no idea what it would entail or what, how I was going to do it or make it. But that's how I started. I just got my license and told myself I'm going to learn everything I can about this business.
And so let's say how old are you now and how many rental units you have?
Sure. So I'm 28 years old, and I have technically 24 doors, 24 apartments, units.
Nice. 28 and 24. Wow. How much is that producing every month?
Well, it's been better. This year has been a little tough because I went into the pandemic with 5 vacancies. And it took a little time to get those filled, but that's just kind of how things are going. But, typically I'd be looking at about maybe $4,000 a month in cash flow after I pay my mortgages. And all my expenses and fees. If everything is rented and I don't have any major problems, I'm probably looking at close to $4,000 a month and positive cash flow that I could take and, pay off more debt with or, spend.
Yeah, so it's 4,000. So we were looking at 50 a year. Yeah, and it's only cash flow. So you're also paying down. That's extra when you're paying down, and that grows every year, right?
Yep.
Getting better every year. Yeah, hopefully,
right.
Yeah. Those 5, you have anybody? You had anybody who wasn't paying at that time?
So one building that I have, I'm a partner in. So that's not included in those units. But we took the building over, and that was one of the tenants that was in the building, and she hasn't been paying for a while. So we kind of were stuck with that. It's been a little rough, but, hopefully by early spring, that won't be an issue anymore. So
once in a while you get bad apple. Yeah.
You do. It's just taking advantage of the system, but
but if you don't move, you can't just be afraid of that bad tenant, because you're never going to grow. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So, 24 units, I only have 8, right now I'm going through the construction on the 8th one. So 7 are working. The 8th one is under construction. Hopefully by the end of the year, I'll get it running. If not, then I already calculated in my numbers that probably in the early spring next year, because in the winter time it's not that easy to find a tenant.
Right.
And I don't want to lower it since I already made the renovation, so I kind of want a good price for that unit. So maybe like February or March, I'll get it going. But by the way, let's. What's your opinion on rent? Right.
So
What? Yeah. Let me
as
ask.
far as like
Let me
how
no. As
pricing is
far
going right now, or how
yes. As far as like pricing, do you like it price the highest number, and then get that tenant, and hopefully they will renew or not? Then you put a new one with a high price, or you just let it rent for a little cheaper, but for a longer time. What do you think?
it depends on the situation. Recently with the most recent units that I've acquired and have been renting out, I've been renovating them and trying to push the market a little bit to get top dollar if I can, so that I can get the extra cash flow and then have some equity in the property. So that was working well earlier this year, end of last year, but we did obviously have this pandemic come along, which limited the demand for people moving and rental properties, in my opinion. So I've seen a little softening. I've had to lower some of my rents to get my units rented more quickly. So, to answer your question, I try not to be the most expensive landlord or most expensive price unit on the market, but I do try to get a little bit higher rent because I feel that my units should come at a premium because I've been investing in them to make them, stand out among what, other units you might find in that price range. If it's, a $1,400 rental, and it's got quartz countertops and stainless steel appliances and vinyl flooring, new bathrooms. I feel that I'm more competitive at $1,400 than maybe the person next door at $1,325. That's 30-year-old condition and not very updated.
So you're a proponent of rehabbing the place, or better buy it, average, maybe a little better than average, and just rent it as soon as possible, or buy it, distressed and fix it up, and then what do you think is better?
So it depends on the situation. The goal, or the name of this game, at least at my point or when I started, was how can I buy as much real estate as I can with as little money as I can?
Right.
So you don't want to overinvest in a property where you're not going to get that back right away, or it could be some time. But if you're going to buy a property that needs work and you're going to refinance that within 1 to 2 years, then I would invest in the property. I would make it as nice as you can, because then you're not going to have to hopefully touch that property for 20 to 30 years, redoing bathrooms or kitchens or flooring. And if you go to refinance it, that property is probably worth, 10, 15, maybe even 20% more than something that's more distressed or, original condition. And you're going to get that back, or at least maybe 75% of that back, loan to value in your pocket. So I'm a proponent of renovating a property if you're going to refinance it and get most of that money back in your pocket. Because once you do that, the property is set. You don't have to touch it for hopefully, 20 years.
But it's getting a little bit hard to do that. Do you agree? It's just everything is selling for so much that you really don't have that spread anymore. If you buy something for 100, you put in another 20, and it's worth 120. It's not even worth doing that work. It's just you wasting your time, right? It's got to be worth 150.
Yeah, I agree completely. Especially if you're going to buy a property and put 20 or 25% down, then I don't advise putting another penny into that property. I would try to buy whatever you're going to buy and put your 20 or 25% down. Make sure it's as ready as possible for rent, and don't invest another dime in it, because then you're tying up too much money in the property.
Yeah.
The only way I do it is if I could buy something and know that I'm going to reposition that property, refinance it, and hopefully pull most or maybe all of that money back out. So that any investment I make is going to be back in my pocket within, hopefully a 12-month period, maybe less. And then I've got a well renovated property that, that's not going to need any major work for a while. So that, it just depends on the strategy, how you're buying it, and how long it's going to be that you're going to have that initial principal tied up into that property.
Yeah, well, by pulling money, you mean like going back to the bank and refinancing it, reappraising it. It takes a little bit of time. Some banks want it to be seasoned too. Yeah, like 6 months of renting. They want to see it that you're getting some rents coming in. But yeah, it comes, it's a part of the game, you have to kind of, but there's a creative way to do it. Yeah, you can ask the seller to hold the financing, seller finance it for you. You can borrow money from the friend. Maybe somebody has an extra 100 grand sitting around. Maybe they want to make some money on that. Like, hey brother, can you loan me 100K? I found this property. I can put in some work and rehab it. Pull the money out. You can make some money with me too. And then that could be a creative way to finance it. Yeah, you don't have to go to the bank and put 25% down. I mean, it's not that easy, but there are ways to do it and start. Yeah,
those deals are out there, and I've done a couple myself. If you can get the seller to hold, say 90% or 80% financing, interest only for 2 to 3 years, it's a nice way to put more cash flow into your pocket up front and to reinvest that back into the building, especially if the building needs some cosmetic updating or upgrades. Then you could take that property, go back to a bank in 2 to 3 years, and hopefully it'll be worth appraised for a higher value because your rents are hopefully higher from the improvements you've done and from having everything repositioned. That's another way of going into a property with as little money down as possible, maybe with 10-20% down, while still giving yourself a cushion for capital improvements.
So it's so the first property you bought was in 21, or it took you a couple of years to buy the first one?
I was 21. Yeah, I was. So I started in the business in January, and I bought my first condo in October.
Oh yeah, and then so about 6 years it took you to get to 24 units.
Yeah, approximately. Yeah, I've been in the business now it'll be 7 years in January. So
is it all condos or is it single? Do you have any houses or is it like apartments?
No houses. So I have 16 condos and then 2 apartment buildings. Now I'm starting to hopefully get more creative and, I'm kind of expanding my boundaries a little bit, and starting to look at duplexes and maybe houses or small houses or townhouses. But I started off with condos and I still like those because it allows you to find deals in different places with, while limiting your management or I guess need to be going to those properties frequently. So,
right.
I have properties that are 45 minutes away, half hour away from my house. And I haven't seen them since I rented them. So It's kind of a nice way to have an investment property and put it on a shelf and hopefully not have to go there for a while.
I thought about it. I almost think about it every day, and I've thought about it for a long time. Everybody keeps saying that the condos is not good. Any website, any podcast, everywhere you go, everybody keeps saying that you shouldn't go to condos, stuff like that. There's special assessments and everything. But that's a good way to start. If you're going to work and you're getting the money, whatever you do, a business work, you make the money and then you put that into a down payment in a rental property. The last thing you want, that rental property start taking away your time, right? And that's what you have with buildings. When you have the outside, roof and sewer line and everything, that's what condo helps you. If you get to 10 condos, that's a good cash flow and almost zero management. The worst thing with these condos is the associations. You have to deal with the sticker, the car sticker, the move-in fee, move-out fee. The form, cars, stuff like that. You have to register everything. Sometimes it's a little too much paperwork for me. But then on the other side, they clean the hallways. They do everything else. They pay for water, stuff like that. So I think that's a good way to start with condos. Because with houses, if you have 5 houses, it starts taking away your time from the work, and then you start losing money here, and then it's just. I think it's of course, if you have a lot of money, you can start with a building. Starting with a building is also a cool idea. You already have so much, but then you have to invest a lot. You have to invest like 100,000 or more. So for somebody who doesn't have that much, you can start slowly. Well, how many units do you think you need to at least start seeing some good numbers? At least start seeing the money. One condo, you don't really feel it. $200, $300 a month, you don't really feel it. Yeah, I
would say, I mean, I think it depends on your cash flow and how much you're putting down and what your rate is and everything. But I think, once you get to 5 to 10 units, I think you start to notice a difference in your life and you start to see collectively the cash flow coming in and the potential with it. But I'd say once you got to 5, you get to 5 or 10, like kind of where you're at right now, you start to see the potential with it. And I think, not saying that you're going to take that and retire off it right now or could quit your job, but you're going to see the power of what it's doing. You're going to start, calculating your principal reduction. You're going to start seeing that cash flow in your bank every month, and you're going to say, wow, this really could be something.
When do you start paying it off? Have you thought about it?
I have. At my stage, I don't want to, especially because I do have positive cash flow. I feel that, me paying my properties off right now, especially if there's long-term debt on it, and where I don't have to, where it'll be a low interest rate loan for the next 25 to 30 years. I'd rather take the cash flow and the money I'm making right now and invest in that more property, as long as those properties are stable and cash flowing. At my stage, at 28 years old, that's what I should be doing for at least the next 10 years, I think. If I were breaking even, or if the market were to change and we started seeing higher interest rates and lower cap rates, where now you're really kind of squeezing the numbers to make them work, at that point I might consider paying one or two off, just to give myself more of a cushion for cash flow. But if you're in my position, you're making $50,000 a year in positive cash flow, and you have equity built in, and you've got enough cushion to ride out a storm of maybe a couple vacancies or a few vacancies or one or two bad tenants, then I would keep taking that capital and I would keep buying more property with it.
So that gets back to the point what you said, that if you can't pull the money that you've put in the down payment and rehab, then better don't spend in the rehab, right? Because you could spend that rehab money on another one,
right?
In another down payment.
And exactly. And I've made that mistake. Well, maybe it's not a mistake. My cash flow is a little bit higher, but there's a couple of properties I bought early on where I put 25% down, and then I put another $5,000 or $10,000 into the property just to make it a little bit nicer. And I got a little bit higher rent for it, but I'm not refinancing those properties right now. So that money is going to be tied up, for a while. Had I taken that extra $10,000, $20,000 and put it down on another property, even if it broke even, I probably would have been in a better position by doing that than investing it in the single property where I don't have plans to pull that out just yet because there's not enough of a margin or a need to refinance it.
Yeah, same thing. I just bought recently a little condo in Buffalo Grove, and I was thinking, okay, let's replace the carpet, let's paint, let's do this. Okay, that's probably going to be another $7,000 or something. The most I could get, it's a little condo, probably $950, maybe that's the most. By the time I finish it, it's probably going to be December. Let me put it for $875, see what happens. Somebody took it. So, I mean, all that money that you're putting in, that even that $10,000, okay, if you raise your rent $100, that's $1,000 a year, maybe $1,200, 9 years to get the money back.
Right.
Yeah?
Right.
I mean, $10,000 is already half of the down payment on another condo. So you're almost halfway.
And that's a great return. And, for somebody, they might be fine with that. But for someone like you or I that would like to scale up, then it's not worth doing it unless the property really, really needs new flooring or new paint or something just to get it rented.
Yeah. And I've noticed that long-term tenants, how should I put it? Like I bought a condo a couple years ago. And so I rehabbed it and put everyth's new, perfect, beautiful. A tenant moved in 6 months ago. She calls me. I need to, sublet the place. Like, okay, I'm looking for another one. That one stays 1 year. She moves out. I put another one. I'm like, man, so many move-ins, move-outs, in my new condo that I've put so much money in. It's costing me money. So, and then, well, when she was breaking that lease after 6 months, we were negotiating a deal that I'm not losing any money, but then again, it cuts into my time now. I'm not spending on making, money here. I now have to deal with that thing.
Right.
And even though I put the condo is beautiful, everything, you can't guarantee that nothing going to go wrong still. But, rehabbing it and making it look nice and raising rent is, it's good because you don't have to worry about, replacing that toilet again. These three problems everybody keeps saying, Grant Cardone says toilet, termites, and tenants, three problems, toilets, termites, and then tenants, you have to worry about. I like Steno style, lower the rent and keep it for a long time. The tenants stay there as long as they can. That's the best way to do it. And,
I agree. some of my best tenants, I haven't seen or talked to them in 4 years, 5 years, and
So good.
and I don't raise their rent that much, maybe $10-15 a year, maybe a little bit more. But there's also something to be said too, because they might not complain as much. They know they're getting a good deal on their unit. They're not going to call you and rock the boat because they know that they might be $50-$100 under market. But it's a win-win for the landlord and the tenant. I'm kind of leveraging my time by not having to deal with the property and putting more improvements into it. And the tenant is getting a good deal on the rent, and it works out for both both the landlord and the tenant.
So
typically
at your stage right now at the 20-some units, do you still going to buy something with HOA or no?
I would.
Yeah.
I would, and I'm still looking. I kind of took a break right now just with everything going on. Unless the right deal presents itself, I'm just kind of a little more cautious right now, just because of the tenant laws and the eviction laws what's going on out there. Not saying that I won't buy anything. I bought a few properties this year, even during the pandemic, but I'm a lot more cautious right now. And I am looking at all options. So if the deal's right, I'll buy it. If it's a condo, if it's a building, if it's a house, if it makes sense to me from an equity or a cash flow standpoint, I'll buy it.
Yeah, me too. I kind of started noticing too that it's a little bit softening in the rental market. That rents are not as strong as they were. You kind of have to be a competitive now. I think you gotta lower the price and be fast. I like those places rented fast. I don't even care sometimes about that $50, $75, $100. Lower it until you find somebody and get it rented, so you're not stuck.
Right.
Yeah.
If you let your property sit for 2 months because you're trying to get top dollar, you're not going to make that back.
Yeah,
at least in the first year. So if you cut your rent by $25, $50, $100, and you get it rented within a couple of weeks, you're going to be better off.
When do you think you should refinance? When the interest rate went down 0.5%, or when you got a little bit of equity and pull that money out and buy something else, or just don't bother until the difference is in interest rate is so big? When do you think that moment start? Okay, I got to refinance that one. What makes you refinance?
Yeah, I've been in that position, several times now, and sometimes I just have a lot of equity in a property, and I'm willing to, if I could pull $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 out of a property that I've owned for 5 or 6 years, then I'll do it, because I could take that and buy, 1 or 2 more small condos, or put that toward another property. I'm going to make less cash flow probably on that property I'm refinancing, but at that point, I'm pulling out so much equity that I'd rather own a couple more properties that collectively might cash flow more, or are going to pay down more debt and, add to my portfolio. Another thing too is that if the rates fall, you might not do a cash out refi, but you might just do a regular refinance where you're not pulling equity out, but your rate might be 4.5% versus 5.8%, which I dealt with recently. So if you look at that over the course of 5 years, you're saving yourself, thousands of dollars that you could be, using to pay down more principal, or again, toward another property.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, I have one with a 3.9, and I saw recently 2.8, 2.9. I'm thinking maybe I can, but then, that one doesn't have that much equity, and then 1%, I don't know, it's going to cost me to do the refinance another couple thousand.
Right.
It's okay, I'll wait. Maybe I'll get, after it gets more, there's going to be more equity, then I'll do it. I just kind of know.
Right.
But it gets to the point when you have a property that's paid off, it's almost like I want to go back and grab that money and put it somewhere else. Why would you want to pay it off? Because you're going to refinance it. You're going to pull that money again and put it somewhere else. So there's why would you ever want to pay anything off? Except for your own place. Except for your own place.
Right.
Your own place is liability. You have to spend. It's not bringing you money, so you kind of want it, paid off maybe. But still, I think if I have my own place when it's paid off, I think I'm still gonna pull that money out and start investing.
Right. Well, especially on your own home, you could get probably the lowest rate possible. Well under 3% right now. You could take that money and buy more real estate with it. So
but do like HELOC, like a line of credit you can always use.
Right.
Like use a HELOC and then pay as you use it, like a credit card. Yeah. What do you think about commercial real estate? You want to graduate into commercial, like industrial buildings, strip malls, hotels, or no?
I thought a lot about it. I always thought that was, kind of the sexy next step,
Yeah.
bigger buildings, hotels, commercial, just because it's, you get bigger name tenants and it's more quote unquote, exciting. You could be in a lot of, neat places. But after this whole pandemic ordeal, I'm glad to be in residential, and I'm in no rush to get into commercial right now, unless it were, was like medical or something where I was leasing to a tried and true tenant that's probably not going to go anywhere unless
FedEx,
we have even worse problems. But
yeah, I was listening to a Bigger Pockets what's that called podcast last episode. There was a guy who was renting to FedEx. FedEx was his tenant. He said, "I'm very happy with them." They're paying on time. They're not going anywhere. Yeah, commercial is taking a little hit this year. Well, I'm expecting it to the prices to fall. To be honest, when a CoStar bought what's it called? What's that? 10X. When CoStar bought 10X, I started seeing a lot of commercial auctions coming up. And I'm listening to different guys on YouTube, and they all say that commercial is gonna dip. So there's gonna be a lot of opportunities there. I think I even started noticing multifamily buildings coming up.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think you're going to see. I think it depends on the area. I think if you're looking at multifamily properties that are in areas or neighborhoods that are more sensitive to the businesses that have closed because of the mandatory shutdowns. Maybe more of a tenant profile that's in like the service industry, restaurant, hotel, any service providing industry that's, shut down versus, the type of tenant you might see in certain neighborhoods that might be more inclined to be able to work from home or be less affected, by the businesses that have shut down. I think you're going to see some of these landlords that have buildings with a couple delinquent tenants, maybe a few delinquent tenants, and they can't hang on to it. They don't want to hang on to it. There's a lot of aging landlords. There's a lot of property owners that have owned their buildings for 20, 30, 40, maybe 50 years, and they're done. They don't want to deal with it anymore. They haven't been wanting to deal with it, and I think this was just the cherry on top that kind of gave them a push to say, you know what, I'm not going to deal with this anymore. I just want to sell it.
Yeah. So, but, supply, if the supply, there's more supply, always prices go down. So then maybe we start getting cap rates to go up, in multifamily a little bit. We start seeing, instead of 5, that's not attractive at all, we start seeing maybe 6.5 cap rate in multifamily, which is already good. But, if you start, what would you rather have, 6 condos or a building with 6 apartments?
I think it depends on the person. I think if you were someone
what would you
me,
rather have?
Okay. So when I started when I was 21 years old, I didn't have a lot of experience and I didn't have a lot of my own money to support issues with the property. So it's a 2-part thing. One, you have to be ready to maintain the property, have a plan in place to call a plumber, to call a service person, a contractor to fix it up. And you also need to learn how to deal with tenants and how to run that end of the business. So it's the physical component of the property and maintaining the property, and it's also the business end of it, which is keeping the unit filled, keeping the tenant happy, vetting tenants to make sure that they're credit worthy. And with a building, it's a lot more. There's a lot more variables. Going into it, if I would have bought a 6-flat, there would have been a learning curve, or a lot larger learning curve than having already owned 6 condos, because now you're dealing with structural issues potentially that at 21 years old, I haven't had those issues come up. I haven't, owned a home
too much
where
stress.
I've had
too much stress.
Right.
In the beginning, yeah.
Right.
You wanna kind of
get
I think it's a Warren Buffett saying, don't test the water with both feet. Yeah.
Right.
Test it with one and then slowly get it in. Yeah.
And it's true. Right. And you can get hit with a large, bill. You might have a sewer collapse or a roof issue or something where now you have to shell out $10,000, $15,000. I can tell you when I started in this business at 21 years old, if I had 6 condos and I had to come up with $15,000, it would have been really tough. But with the condos, you're sharing that with the HOA. There's reserves. It's a lot easier to deal with an unexpected situation or problem with a building. And even if it is a special assessment, a lot of times you have a few years to pay that off. So even if I had to cut my cash flow by $100 or $200 a month, that's a lot easier to swing than having to come up with writing a check for $15,000 right off the bat.
100%. I think first 10 should be condos. But let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What are your criteria when you're looking at the condo? Obviously, you're not only buying 4 walls, you're also buying location and the complex, the association. So you have to have some sort of criteria, requirements in order to say, this is association I don't want to deal with. Like, would you buy something that a 3-unit building and only 1 unit inside, and that association is in Michigan and the place is in Chicago? Would you?
I think it depends on the structure. So if it's a smaller building, you want to make sure that it's in good shape, or that there's no capital expenditures that are going to be coming up. I ran into that problem with a building or with a condo I bought. Turned out to be a good deal. Still, it was a great deal looking back, but it was a small self-managed building, and I was caught up because it's Glenview, and that's a great suburb, great part of town. But I got nailed with special assessments for the first 3 years, and broke even. There was parking lot issues. There were some tuck pointing issues. There were a lot of big ticket items that needed to be addressed with the building. So
looking back,
the draw.
Looking back, would you still buy it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I would. But I think I would have. I'm glad I bought it. Let's put it that way. Yeah. But I probably could have maybe done better by buying something else. But again, it was Glenview, and that's a nice affluent suburb. So it depends on how you look at it. I probably could have gotten a better return somewhere else in another town, but looking back, I bought it in a great town, and I still made money on it. So
those are the lessons you have to go through, and
right,
and it's worth it. Even sometimes when you break even, the experience you get is sometimes even when you lose money, the experience you get sets you up for new successes. You're ready to take on a bigger job. Because you've been through it already. You're not afraid of it. You've been your skin is thicker now. But in buying when you're buying a condo, I also look at it. You're also buying association, and I like it. Like Stino says, when a manager is on the site, always good. I like the complexes that are big. That's personally me. I don't necessarily like old buildings like when you're towards Chicago, and then 3-4 units building, and one of those units, I don't know, for some reason I just don't trust the management. I don't think they're paying too much attention or giving it enough attention to the building. It's just it's always outsourced, and I don't know, it's just I like those complexes in the suburbs, like we're buying stuff. Arlington Heights, Buffalo Grove, these complexes, there are managers on site.
Right. And they could take advantage too of economies of scale and having more units in one place. The costs of the maintenance and the management there tends to be a little less expensive because you're in one spot, you're in one place. So if you have somebody on site, it's less expensive to have someone running 300 units than 150 units. Yeah. And going down the list. So it becomes more affordable, I think. Your HOA fees might be the same as a smaller building, but you're getting more for your money.
Would you turn down the deal that has like a condo that has electric heat? You're only looking for gas heat included in HOAs, or you don't care?
No, I would look into electric heat. I have a couple that are, if the tenant's paying it, then I'll do it. But I look at the market time. So another factor too is I have to like the area. The building has to be, in somewhat decent enough shape where I don't have to worry about it in the near future with any, big improvements coming up. But if there's a demand for that type of unit and it's renting in, 2-3 weeks, pretty healthily, then I'll buy it. I'm not afraid, of the heat.
Do you see yourself when you're 50 years old, 60 years old, selling those condos for something consolidated, or you're just going to keep it forever?
Possibly. Yeah. I guess it depends on what the tax laws are at the time. If we sell 1031 exchanges, but I'd consider maybe selling a couple and maybe bulking that into another, more consolidated property. But I don't know, if I don't have to deal with them for 20 years and they're still in great shape, there's probably no reason to sell them. Maybe I would just pull an equity loan out on the property and buy something else.
Yeah, it's just sometimes, when you're looking at the bigger picture, where you're going, and then you want some more cash flow always. And then if you end up having a lot of cash flow, you're looking at that condo that produces $200 a month. And like, maybe I just sell it, put that money back into this. Or maybe you just keep it because you're so spread out and you're so protected, diversified. I don't know, it's kind of things I'm thinking about. But still, in my opinion, I'll just keep going, buying more condos. Single family, I don't know. The prices grow on single family faster, like quicker. Those appreciations are better than in condos, But again, there's more management. If I buy a sewer line and if I buy a roof, I think I want more units, just one, in my opinion. But again, I know there's a lot of people that are making money in single family houses. I'm following this guy on Instagram. Rick Jarman, I think, Real Estate Old School is his account name, and he's only buying single family. He's got 100 plus. He's got a pretty big Instagram account. He's posting videos every day, and he's a funny guy. But only single family houses, nothing else, just houses. Yeah. Small 80,000 house. He puts 10,000 into rehab and just let it cash flow. 100 houses. I mean. Right. You got to have a system to manage this. You have to have, plumbers. But in my opinion, I don't know. Sewer line and roof, I want more units than just one. That's just my opinion. But
I agree. If I'm going to buy, something like a house that is more maintenance intensive, then there's got to be something in it for me long term. So maybe if I'm buying a house and I see an equity potential with it, like I'm buying it discounted and I'm going to push the value 30%, then maybe I'm willing to take that on because I'm not going to get that same equity appreciation up front, with another type of property. So I think, you just have to look at it and say, okay, if I take this house and this condo and they're both the same cap rate, maybe you go with the condo. But if you're buying this house at a discount, it's going to cash flow even better and there's a lot of upside with it. That's when I think you say, okay, this house makes more sense, even though there's more to deal with. With it makes more sense from an investment standpoint.
What's your goal? You have a goal? 100K
I think everybody does.
Passive, 100K a month passive?
Yeah, I mean, going into this, I thought, maybe 100 units would be kind of the number, but why limit yourself? You know what I mean? I think now if I could hit, 200 units or more, by the time I'm 50 or 60, then, I think it's possible. I think, you'd be surprised by what you can accomplish if you, if you really go for it.
Yeah.
So
I keep noticing, some even the host of Bigger Pocket podcast, he's, I remember 2014, he only had like 40 or something. He's over at 7,000 units right now, close to 7. Wow. But he's got like mobile home parks. He buys the land and then there's a bunch of mobile homes. It just gets exponential if you stay focused and then you keep the first one is the hardest. The second one is also hard, and third and fourth, and then it gets kind of like a momentum. You get a momentum, yeah.
You do.
You get 5 in a year, then you get 10 in a year, then you get 20 in a year, and then you get a building, and then it's just, 100 is not that hard if you keep at it, yeah. 10 years, you can get it, yeah.
I think so. I think once you take the initial dive and you get, you break the ice with it, and you get yourself in a good position where you're cash flowing, you're very careful about the first 10 properties that you buy, then from there you can really launch, especially if you're working too, like I am. I'm a real estate agent as well. you can kind of catapult all of that into a much bigger portfolio. So.
Yeah, if you start calculating everything you're getting, cash flow, principal reduction, appreciation, you can't really see all that money because it's all on paper. Yeah, it's only like a cash flow that you see, and everything else is on the paper. Depreciation, appreciation, principal. It's like, but it's still it's the same. It's the same money. You can kind of calculate and see what your return is on the money you've put in. It gets pretty interesting over time.
It does, and it kind of reassures me too. Even if I have a bad tenant or a bad year on a particular property with some type of expense that came up, you tally everything up at the end of the year. You look at, okay, worst case, if these properties go up with inflation or stagnate, you're still going to be very happy with your return overall.
All right, sounds good. I think we should be we're almost done. Got one more minute, but we're going to be wrapping up. Thanks, Lou, so much for joining me today. If anybody have any questions, message me here on Facebook. We're going to share this video on our Facebook pages, and it was great talking to you, Lou. Thanks so much for joining me. It was a great interview, great talk.
No problem. Thank you. Thanks, Oleg. Thanks for having me, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay. Thanks so much. See ya.
Take care. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
В ефірі Незалежне Радіо. Слухайте нас на сайті uaradio.com, завантажуйте мобільну аплікацію та слідкуйте в соцмережах.
В час нестабільності та невизначеності корпорація «Міст» продовжує працювати для вас у звичайному режимі.
Як і завжди, ми здійснюємо доставку посилок, грошових переказів, продуктових наборів та речей першої необхідності для ваших рідних та близьких в Україні.
За додатковою інформацією звертайтеся за номером телефону
1-800-361-73-45.
Пам'ятаємо, ми сильні, коли ми разом.
Юридична компанія Chicago Law Group. Професійна юридична підтримка у еміграційних питаннях, політичний притулок, возз'єднання сімей, депортація, робочі та туристичні візи. Телефон для консультації 847 579 9989. Деталі на сайті chicagolawgroup.com. Chicago Law Group. Команда досвідчених юристів на вашому боці.
Чи пам'ятаєте ви оцей смак дитинства? Справжнього кефіру з домашнього молока. Так от, кефір Зімосі – смак дитинства. Містить всього лише 2 натуральні інгредієнти – свіже молоко з ферм амішів та пробіотики. Завдяки безлічі вітамінів та мікроелементів кефір Зімосі підвищує імунітет, стимулює травлення та покращує самопочуття. Зімосі смакує і дорослим, і дітям, адже є для кожного свій вибір смаку. Дуже густий фермерський, малиновий, з чорною смородиною та звичайний. Шукайте в продуктових магазинах або замовляйте за телефоном 630-205-1805. Доставка абсолютно безкоштовна. Поживно, смачно та корисно. Це кефір Зімосі.
В ефірі Незалежне Радіо. Слухайте нас на сайті uaradio.com, завантажуйте мобільну аплікацію та слідкуйте в соцмережах.